currently the chairman and board of Global Geopolitical Sciences Limited. James is a thoroughly experienced and recognized business and civic leader. He's played major roles in the development of entities in lithium operations, energy production, and enterprise software and solar farm development in the lithium industry, spending the last decade as an early investor and chairman of the board at Orbicor Limited. Please join me in welcoming James Calaway with Lithium and Batteries, Solution to the Greatest Energy Transformation.
It's great to be with you today. Before I get into my comment, I probably should make a confession first. And that is, I'm a Texan. I was born a twin, 2 weeks premature, and my dad barely made it to see us being born because he was out on a drilling rig drilling wells. He proceeded to name me James Derrick, D-E-R-R-I-C-K, Calaway. So I'm named after oil derrick. And it took me years to get over this. But in 2000, my twin brother and I both recognized that what we were doing while we were making plenty of money drilling and producing oil and gas, that it just was untenable from a point of view of what we saw as the future. And so we sold our oil and gas industry business, which was substantial. And I'm a reformed guy who's no longer oil and gas guy. But I have a sympathy for it, living in Houston, and have a lot of friends that are still plowing away in that unfortunate industry. What we did when we finished this up is my twin brother, he immediately knew what he wanted to do. He wanted to go off and build wind farms initially, and then ultimately became wind farms and solar farms. And he proceeded to do that, and I was part of that. And it took me longer, but actually it turned out 12 years ago, just down the road here at the Aspen Ideas Festival, the whole conversation at that Aspen Ideas Festival was actually the question, well, what do we do about our energy security, and how does that relate to the environmental security? And, every smart guy and gal on the planet was up there, and they were all talking about the Middle East and blah, 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 and I was so sick and tired of listening about the Middle East and oil, and they were talking about policy, et cetera, none of which seemed adequate, in my opinion, to address the crisis that my brother and I felt was upon us. And I still feel that way, by the way. And so I had not yet found my path, and it led me to an off-grid conversation, about 40 of us sitting in a room at the Aspen Institute, and there were a bunch of professors sitting around talking about the possibility of electric propulsion, and how if we could get electric propulsion widely adopted, that we could really break the back of oil, because 70% of oil is used for transportation. And it blew my mind, quite honestly, and I said, now that's it for me. I'm going to go and, my twin brother's going to lead the way in solar and wind, and I'm going to go lead the way in electric propulsion. Well, I'm a practical fella, and my family is a practical business people, and we like to apply capital and make money on our investments. We associate that with risk. We do a risk assessment to decide if it makes sense to invest capital. And I started looking at electric propulsion and realized that really it was a conversation about batteries, because the rest of it's pretty simple and straightforward. It's about batteries. And if you ever want to fall asleep, I encourage you to do what I did, which is go to battery conferences. It is a really bad place. Yeah, I mean, if you can make it through one of those, you've got incredible stamina. And, I just went to one of them after another trying to figure this out. And I got big stacks of technical papers, and invariably it starts off, the first paragraph, you can understand it as a layman. By the third page, you're really confused. And at the back, you need to be a chemist, and all chemistry. And I stacked them up, read them all, trying to figure out how we could invest in batteries, because that was sort of the linchpin of electric propulsion. And I concluded that there was no way for me to figure that out. And I just couldn't figure it out. It was like trying to decide what car company to invest in 1905. It had just too many possibilities. And if I had decided to do that, by the way, I would have invested in A123 and lost all my money. So that was not a good path. One day I sat there and I thought to myself, my God, I think at the back of all those papers, there's a common denominator, and that was LI. I think that's right. So I ran into my office all excited about this, because if you can find a common denominator in a mess like that, then you have an opportunity to really do something. And sure enough, I got a yellow pad, didn't even use a spreadsheet, got a yellow pad, went and flipped to the back to all the chemistry sections, and sure enough, every single paper, no matter where it came from, had Li in the equation. Now, I didn't understand the equations, I just want you to know, I did not, but I knew that they all wanted it. And I said, damn, that's how a person could make a difference. Where they're going to, if this comes to be, and if there's going to be electric propulsion, they're going to need a hell of a lot of it. And so I actually ran off and organized a bunch of engineers and people that had found the early production of lithium down in Chile. They were all about 75 years old and hadn't had anybody ask them anything for a long time, quite frankly. And I said, look, come work for me for a while. They did. And I gave them a simple message. I said, look, I know where Saudi Arabia lithium is. It's in the Atacama Desert of Chile. But I need to know where Kuwait is. That's what I said. Oil. Anyway, and sure enough, I got lucky. And these guys understood things I didn't understand. And we identified something that was in a little bitty public company, $26 million market cap company. They had to drill a couple of wells into a big salt flat up in the top of, way up 14,000 feet in northwest Argentina, of all places. And it discovered this incredible brine. And I ran straight with my guys and bought a ton of that company, became chairman. And today, lo and behold, I've finally made a little contribution because I produce 10% of the world's lithium. And I'm now working on getting it to 20%. So I think by the end of 3 years from now, we'll be at about 20% of the world's lithium. And the reason I tell you that, and by the way, my brother, he did pretty well too, because he's built 2 gigawatts of renewable energy all around the world. And I've joined him, and I'm now building 240 megawatts in Chile right now. So we're really just, guys that got over being oil men and are very practical-minded people trying to make money. So I don't want to sound like I'm a philanthropist. I'm a believer in what we're doing, but I'm trying to make money because I personally don't believe that the solutions that we need to address the climate risks that we face can be found solely with public policy. I just don't believe it. I think we have to be economic. We have to be able to make money so that we can have the capital markets flow in and support these enormous, enormous efforts that are required to make this transition. So I thought that I might spend a few minutes, whatever I've got myself, to give you a little bit of my vantage point today as it relates to electric propulsion. And the reason I do that is that I have a close-up view because I sell the stuff that's absolutely essential to their batteries to all of them. And in fact, my partner is Toyota, so I really have a close front view of this. And here's my basic worldview. Number one is no matter what anybody says, and there's going to be a lot of propaganda against what I'm getting ready to say, coming from some of the auto sector, and certainly the oil and gas industry. It's over for the internal combustion engine. Yeah. It's over. It's finished. It's just a question of how many years we're talking about, and it's not very many. My good friend Tony Saba, who, spoken at these conferences, will tell you, he's about right. Now, he's considered to be really an outlier on this subject, but I think when the deal's written up, he's going to be closer than the international energy agencies and other people like that. And by the way, it goes well beyond to total domination. And by the way, it's going to be a total domination because we're quickly moving towards cost parity at the point of purchase. It already is on parity in terms of the total cost of ownership, okay? And in the next 3 or 4 years, it's going to be absolutely clear that the best performing cars with the highest reliability, the highest consumer satisfaction, is going to be electric cars. They're better. They only have like 13 moving parts in the damn thing. Now, there's some people who really don't want this to happen. The oil industry is the obvious one. They really are going to spend a lot of money and effort and lie to you and make stories and have people write articles that aren't true to try to confuse our minds. They're the auto dealers who hate this, by the way. Let's not forget about them. They hate it with a passion, and it's because their business is basically to make money fixing super complicated internal combustion engines, and they're getting ready to lose that business. Oh no, these are big, huge employers, very politically powerful. Those kind of people are going to fight this, and we're going to have an ongoing battle with them. But it's a battle they're going to lose, because the electric car is just better. It's better. Forget about the environmental side. It's just going to be a better car, period. It's going to cost less. So why in the world would people say, hey, I really want to pay more for a stinky engine that breaks down? I mean, that's not what they're going to do. Now, the question that's really interesting is who's going to lead this effort? And I'm a little saddened by what I'm getting ready to tell you. But it's not going to look, it doesn't look very promising. It's going to be from the United States. On a global basis, really the action and where you need to be keeping your eye focused is on China. It's not here, okay? China has a massive effort underway, far bigger than most Americans realize in this area. The incentive systems that they put in place for the transition are enormous. The capital that's being invested by their industries to build up both cell-making capacity, battery pack capacity, and now automobiles and trucks and motorcycles and you name it, is from China. And in fact, the Chinese and the Koreans and the Japanese, to some extent, being sort of second-tier important players in this, are the ones mainly providing all the technology now to the Germans and to the United States. I mean, the only exception, I have to say a little word about Tesla. I mean, Tesla definitely goes down in history as the guys who ruined the time frames that the automobile manufacturers wish they had. They really didn't want this to happen because they wanted to have more time to transition their capital investments. But I don't know if Tesla is going to make it. I really don't know. I would say that given the challenges that they've been having, I think they really have put themselves in tremendous risk because the avalanche of incredible cars that are getting ready to hit the market in the next 2 and 3 years. People just don't have any idea. Everything from super high performance cars like the new Porsche car that's coming out, that's going to rip your neck off, all the way to very affordable long range cars that are work for everybody. And by the way, even electric trucks are coming too. So I think Tesla's kind of missed its moment. Maybe they can hang in there, but with the onslaught coming from particularly from the Germans, from of course the Chinese in particular, the Koreans and the Japanese, I'm a little concerned. General Motors is very innovative, but they have a more primitive view about the supply chain, and I'm very concerned about that too, because American way is, let's just say, laissez-faire, the markets are all going to take care of themselves, we just buy the stuff. The Chinese, are you kidding? Every 5 minutes there's a call from the Chinese, hey, we'd like to buy your resources from you, and we say, well, we can't do that because we're partners with the Japanese, but they are buying up all the critical materials around the world that are necessary for batteries. And they're going to choke us off if we're not careful. So this is a great threat to the United States. I don't see us having the great leadership that we should. I think the Chinese are going to show the way. And I'm going to say, I'm running out of time, but I'm going to take 1 minute and say something about this damn administration. I'm sorry. We could not be more unfortunate than to have this administration when we have this administration. The world is in the most fantastic energy revolution that the world has ever known, and we have guys like Pruitt who sit around and deny global warming. We have a president who thinks that the good idea is, let's go make sure we keep the coal plants going and keep the coal jobs that are falling off, and let's put tariffs on solar facilities. So my view is, let's all make damn sure we get out and vote like crazy. Let's put a roadblock in front of this insane, backward-looking administration, and then for God's sakes, let's get this son of a bitch out. Thank you.